The idea of a parent not only not loving their child, but hating their child is unfathomable to most. Yet, parents like this exist. And they've always existed throughout all of history. Many a historical ruler have off their own children. These examples of hate have been few and far in between comparatively, but extreme examples like this have been coming to the light more and more. It's because of how shocking it is not to just automatically love your child. But hey, who can be surprised? We live in a society that says that children are disposable as soon as they're conceived if we don't want them. Yes, everything is a big, lovely, tangled mess of individual and societal mindsets, all connected. Let's dive in. I argue that it's easier now, more so than throughout all of history, for parents to dislike their children. At least the last 2 generations of parents have been raised to believe that children are not blessings or miracles to be embraced, but accessories to be fit into your life. Accessories to be fit into your life at best, and inconveniences at worst. We live in a culture where the most important thing in the world is our personal happiness. And yet, collectively, we're more depressed than ever. We have become so focused on our carnal wants, material, food, sex validation, that we no longer see others as people anymore, just those on our team or enemies. So the root of it all is that we no longer know how to find happiness. But that's a broader topic for another video, and yet a very important related point to this one. The people who were told that they deserve all of the goodness and happiness in the world somehow learned that they deserved it at the expense of others, which meant natural obligations that didn't jive with their feelings and wants went right out the window. Obligations such as sacrificing yourself for the good of others, such as caring whether or not your spouse and children were happy, or if they were happy, not caring about whether or not the thing that brought them happiness was good for them. No, what matters is us. We're the center of our own universe, the hero in our play. And blatant evil has seeped so deeply into societal mindsets about what success and fulfillment is, defined as achieving personal happiness, that we've lost all ability to conceptualize or even achieve authentic happiness, or even the ability to love others. And those people who were raised with such poor examples of love and parenthood only became what the issue was in the first place. The thing that caused them such angst and trauma. A parent who cannot love their child. This is the root of every societal issue in the world. Parents not loving their children. Because that is how children learn how to love. And children grow into adults. Let's face it, most people can't love anymore. There's no concept of deep, life-giving love in our culture anymore. People don't know how to love because they didn't feel loved by their parents. Because their parents didn't love them. And if a parent cannot love their own child, the small human being that they should want to lay down their life for, how in the world do you think that small human would be able to comprehend that they're lovable? The truth is that it is extremely difficult for someone to believe that they are lovable and worthy of love if their parents didn't love them. And someone who doesn't feel worthy of love oftentimes won't think others are either. Someone who hasn't experienced respect and dignity given to them doesn't bat an eye at depriving others of these things. We all know misery loves company, right? But let's bring it back around. Misery does love company. And that's why it's so easy for parents to deprive their children of love. Let's face it, loving is difficult. Love is a behavior, not a feeling. It's a decision to do what's best for someone else. And it's even more difficult, especially if you weren't shown how to love. Quite honestly, you have no idea how nasty I would be if I were not Catholic. Without supernatural aid, I would hardly be a human being. Evelyn Waugh and I have that in common. My resting state is absolute savage, and I have to stop and remind myself of the dignity of others before I rip them to shreds in 3 sentences or less just for annoying me. And I've got 6 kids to teach how to love to make the world a better place. If I can do it, you can do it. But let's not gloss over the topic of this conundrum of parents not loving their children and thusly reinforcing everything bad about the world. One has to beg the question, why did people breed if they didn't want children? Well, there is, of course, still societal expectations of them to have a natural family life. Expectations which, now in the recent years, have swung in the opposite direction. And the cat-hoarding woman looks at me with my 6 kids as if I'm a mad woman. I am a little. But these expectations to avoid having children are extremely new to history. I believe that there's this statistic that's been going around saying that by 2030, half of all women above 30 will be childless, which I believe is the first time for such an extreme thing to occur. And it is extreme because the natural state for one's life is marrying and breeding. Yes, I know I'm a hopeless romantic. So many people did feel pressured by the natural expectation, but they were also raised with the flawed concept of what love is and what would make them happy, that they truly couldn't fathom what parenthood would be like, much less how to be a good parent. Quite honestly, no one can until it happens to them. And even then, every kid is different. Every child requires something different and specific from their parents, whether it's the amount of attention they need, or maybe you're a robot who gave birth to 2 highly emotional children and you need to get on their level so they don't become traumatized. So now you have all these people who thought what was expected of them was to leap into parenthood when they were, quite honestly, ill-prepared in the most severe ways. Or you have the flip side, the parents who wanted children because they viewed human beings as accessories to them and realized the entire human being they were trying to fit into their life to make them happy couldn't make them happy. And not only can they not make them happy, they steal from them the very things that parents learned would make them happy. Because remember, we learned a false ideology of how to achieve happiness and success. So now you have 2 groups of parents who hate being parents and can't get out of it. These innocent people, which, yes, I acknowledge that they are innocent because they had a false ideology foisted upon them. They hate parenthood. So now they're angry. So what does society do to combat this extreme dislike of one's own children due to their stealing our happiness? We kill them. We kill our children. We learn to kill them while still at a young age ourselves, before we can even create them, because of the threat of them stealing our potential happiness. This mindset is not only what created horrible parents who look at their children with disdain, reminded that their mere existence was an option, but it's created the very culture of death. The culture of death lies at the feet of parents not loving their children. The culture of death is the pendulum swing to giving up one's own life out of love. It's either death for the one who steals my happiness and freedom, or death to my happiness and freedom. Right? Well, that's the lie they sold us peasants. The culture of death, created by parents who did not break the cycle and stand up against the lies of what happiness and success are, drives everything wrong in the world. War, hatred for our fellow man, electing corrupt politicians, mass pew-pews, sexual depravity, children being abandoned by their parents, everything. So why did they, those in power, feed us these lies? Well, it all worked out, didn't it? The plan. They want us to hate one another. They don't want us to be happy, which is why they set us on a path that could never lead to happiness. It's misery. And we're all on the path. And they all want us there. Parents generally feel lost because they're alone on that path. They don't feel connected to their partner, as evidenced by the divorce rate or people who don't even want to get married, and certainly the dissatisfaction rates of relationships these days. How in the world can one person take on the battle of parenting if they don't have support? It's hard, and it breeds contempt. contempt for your partner, contempt for your situation in life, and contempt for your children. And our malevolent rulers know that. They don't want us to live in communities anymore. They want us all alienated so we don't support one another. They want us caught up and keeping up with the Kardashians, Joneses. They don't want us wanting better for others because we're all so miserable. We hate those who we think are happier than us. So we tear one another down. They don't want us in happy, strong marriages because happy, strong marriages produce happy, strong children who make the world better. You see, we used to live in actual physical communities, not just the Facebook ones, with other people who generally had the same value system as us. Parents knew their children would be safe, so they didn't have to hover. But what's more, they knew their children would be guided by trusted members of the community, the same way they would guide their children. Because everybody valued children. They would be disciplined if they acted out. They would feel protected if danger arose. They would be raised together, strong in the values of the community. It takes a village, not only to raise a child, but to raise a parent. They don't want us living in villages we create anymore. They want to be the village for your child, excluding you. They don't share wholesome values, and they sure won't guide your child how they ought to be guided. They sell them the same lie of what would make them happy and successful, and obviously that doesn't work. And you know what? They not only make it so easy for you to be miserable in your parenthood, they make your child insufferable. They make them unlikable. Because the truth is that a parent who's always with their child wants to make them pleasant to be around, if anything for their own sanity. I love being with my children. My children are awesome human beings. But they don't want you to like your children. They want you to want to get rid of them by sending them to the village for most of their adolescent years. They don't want you loving your children, breaking the cycle of creating adults who can't love. They want people to choose to either not have children or traumatize them if they do. It's not normal for parents to dislike their children. Major conditioning went into us, and quite frankly, it's kind of easy to hate children now. You hear nonstop jokes about how terrible children are, mom groups filled with only gripes about their motherhood martyrdom, women getting up and saying if they hadn't killed their child, they never would have achieved their hopes and dreams. The last shred of hope now is that parents who don't like their children often try to hide this fact from others. But they can't hide it from their kids. They do this because of the obvious shame and guilt that dislike generates. At least now we've got a little bit of healthy shame. Until we don't. So how do we combat all this? Well, the first step is awareness. The cliche of education. And no, that doesn't mean expensive brainwashing, which is what most people think education is now. No. Look around you. Step back and look at the world. If we witnessed an animal wanting to hurt their offspring, we would be able to immediately tell that there is a very deep internal issue there. And we would recognize that that animal parent needs help because there's something wrong. We would see right away that it's not natural to behave that way towards their child. A parent's love and desire to protect their child is a biological and natural automatic instinct. The fact that it isn't now for so many of our species means that something very terribly wrong has occurred in the natural world. The second step to uprooting this conditioned evil: learning that you're worthy of love. People don't love others because they don't feel lovable. And no, people can still love others even if they don't love themselves, because I know that's exactly what you guys were thinking. And yes, people can love others and dislike themselves, but unless they comprehend it in the depths of their soul that they are just as worthy of love as an innocent little baby, they cannot begin to move the world in the right direction. It is very difficult for someone to treat others with human dignity if they cannot comprehend human dignity. So the first two steps to battling this phenomenon of parents not liking their children and reversing the culture of death is to gain awareness of all that is going on, how deep the rabbit hole goes, and to embrace the comprehension of human dignity. beginning with yourself. But you really want to know the best way someone can change the world? Love a child. It's the best thing anyone can do with their life. I'm Regina Lux with Veritas on the Rocks. Now, ignite the truth and boldly go.